tonight we are here for the 2022 Fremantle Dockers Season Preview. Will it be a year where the Dockers cement themselves in the final 8, or will it be once again anchoring themselves in the bottom half of the ladder? All will be revealed with my superstar guest. Now, you know him, Fremantle supporters, as the Duck from the Purple Rain podcast. He is an absolute gun. We had him on last year. We had to get him back. Duck, welcome to Lace Out.
Thanks, Peps. Thanks for having me back, mate. It's been an interesting 12 months since I last spoke to you, bud. But man, things are going well.
Nothing's going on at Fremantle. It's just all ticking along as nicely.
It's not. Mate, I tell you what, we've after the game on the weekend, it was how much can we buy a bus for? Can we store fuel because fuel prices are going up? How long is it going to take to drive a bus? Do we need to get some kind of special license to drive a bus from Coburn to the G, mate? Because we've booked it, mate. We've absolutely launched into the season, and every preseason since we've been doing the pod, we've been doing it since 2016 when the Dockers fell off a cliff. And, we had our first episode last night, mate, and it's the most excited we've been since 2016, since our very first episode. Because
you've got to be excited. Isn't it nice to be excited?
Oh, mate, it is.
About footy?
It's great. And it's really, really positive. It's all been positives this off-season where our injury list's been very limited, which usually like 4 or 5 guys are down injured. And, I mean, the last couple of years actually good. The Freo Doka, who, as much as he's a great Gags man to follow, he put something up on Twitter the other day where it was essentially going into round 1 the last 2 years, we've had about 10 to 15 injuries, and probably 6 or 7 of those have been best 22 players that are out for an extended period of time. And you know how important it is as a Demons fan, mate, how important a healthy preseason is. Just going from 2020 or 2019?
2019. Well, I think we had 15 surgeries in the off season, and
and it was just
too far to catch up.
Write it off. And then when you have a good run at it and you have your best 22 in, and you go, oh, actually, there's because I think the difference between like when you lose, say, even a Fife, and you're trading that in for a Banfield or a Crowden, like it's not comparable, and the drop off is so much. And we've actually built, I think over the last couple of years, we've built a lot of young, good players coming in through the door. Peterbell and Wolsey have done a great job through the draft. They haven't traded as much, which has been good, and the trades they've done have been solid. And I think they actually, there's been a little bit of a step backwards. But, at the start, end of last year, I thought once we lost Chera, we were going to step backwards a bit. But just looking at how they played on Friday against a pretty horrid West Coast team, to be honest. It's pretty exciting. It really is.
Well, I learned something from you last year. Your wet toast was used throughout Lace Out last year. We love wet toast.
Oh, mate,
now,
wet toast, mate.
What would be there's wet toast. What would you call them at the moment? Because they're worse than wet toast. They're not soggy toast. They're almost Queensland Floods toast. That is how bad they are. I think I had a chat to Wazza from Eagle Nation last week, and we worked out that there's 24 fit players on their list. And you'd almost fake an injury if you were that 24th player if you could not get a game in the 23. That's how bad that they're going.
Yeah, they've just got whatever curse the Dockers had, So, and it's kind of nice to see it. It's not nice to see it flip, but it's just good to have that luck on your side, because that's footy. A lot of it is luck, and it's injury luck. And, to be honest, the Eagles, I feel like they're going to be the 2016 Dockers. They're falling off a cliff. They've lost Shepherd. I think people forget Shepherd's an all-Australian halfback flanker. He's really good. McGovern's old and slow. Naitanui old and slow. Kennedy's old and slow.
No. Don't you dare say that about Nick Naitanui, ranked number 1 player by champion data in the league. Mate. That's sacrilege. Don't say that.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? And Darling's not coming back. Oscar Allen's broken his foot. So it's interesting. There's guys over here, Duff and Quarters, who do a podcast. They're both renowned journalists. They're not just a bunch of mugs that talk into microphones. But Duff's big thing is, their best 10 on their best 10 is the best 10 in the competition, but that best 10 has disappeared. You know, Jack Darling's no longer there. You know, and I don't know what's going on with him. Bit of a weird unit, but anyway, each to their own.
I asked Wazza about that, and he goes, I don't know.
The money, mate.
If I'm getting paid $500,000,
yeah,
I would just get the shot.
He's
and it's more about what, but it's also like if you're his teammate, you'd be pretty pissed off that this guy is, you know, supposed to be team oriented, but won't, whatever it might be. It's not for me to judge, but when you're trying to analyze it for what he's done, and he's a massive unit to say no. I don't know whether the family's anti-vaxxers. I don't know if he's an anti-vaxxer. I don't know if he's just, you know,
it was interesting. Peps, I don't know. A couple of years ago, mate, there was his Twitter. Someone on Docker's Twitter was like, "Can people just start having a look at Jack Darling's likes on Twitter and the stuff that he was liking?" And it was it was some interesting stuff. And I think after that, he deleted his Twitter a couple of days after that when it just started to get out. It's like, oh, hang on, Jack Darling's a bit of an interesting unit. And look, mate, I'm not one to talk about anti-vaxxing and stuff. I think it's such a divisive thing, but I think the best thing that's said is he's probably just on a different algorithm, man. He's just rolling on a different algorithm where he's just getting fed how bad this stuff is for him. And, you know, it really, you feel upset for people like that. You do feel sad for him. So,
well, Liam Jones, perfect example out of Carlton.
Yeah.
Like he was looking to get a $500,000 a year contract. Yeah. His career had just skyrocketed over the last number of years. You know, at one stage almost touted as All-Australian squad fullback, just how well he was going. Yeah. And then he's just given it up. But then he's gone to play football in Queensland. Boggles the mind. But you know what? Respect their choices. But let's just talk about the Dockers because you made some good choices over the pre-season. Yes, Chera's not there, and I'll ask you about that in a moment. But you brought in a young fella. He wears the number 6. All the greats wore number 6. Jackson, Lewis, Pepper. Jordan Clark is in for your mob.
Yep.
Really
okay
on the weekend.
Yeah, really impressed by Clark on the weekend. You know, spelled his name wrong about 50 times on Twitter because it doesn't have an E on it. But no, look, he forced his way kind of to the Dockers, which you know sometimes can you kind of like, is this guy the right character you want for you? But he's training the house down as everyone does in preseason. But no, he's super fit, and I think I'm not sure why Geelong got rid of him. I'm not sure if they wanted to, but he wasn't a Geelong character. I think that was the thing. Scarlett didn't really like him. Was the rumours. And look, he's electric pace, smart, skillful, and he's going to fit into our halfback flank easily. And he'll be a really, really important player. He looks so good. And I know he played on the half forward flank a little bit for Geelong and he got a bit lost in that dead man zone. And, you know, like I think he's a massive upgrade on the guys we've had in the halfback flank over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he didn't get a game simply because he just doesn't fit into Geelong's age profile of mid-30s. He was 21, totally didn't young. Fit. So they got rid of him, got rid of Darcy Fort, and they brought in someone more along their profile, which was Jonathan Segler at around about the age of 36.
Yeah, old man
syndrome.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, you know, just because they're old doesn't make them bad. Now, you've got this guy is a freak. Like, he is the Penfolds of the AFL, isn't he, David Mundy? Like, he just seems to not stop, but he just continues to get better. Like, just when you think it's going to be his last season, he goes ahead, comes second in your BNF to probably should say, will be one of the premier ruckmen over the next number of years in Sean Darcy. Like, that's a phenomenal result for a guy who's 35 plus. Yeah, and everybody on this side of the country loves watching him too because he's a footballer and he's a respectful one and he's old school and we love that.
Yeah, and I mean we always talk about David Mundy like he would be like Scotty Pendlebury if he was over in the Eastern States. Like I think he's still underrated. He's an unbelievable footy player. About 3 or 4 years ago, they tried to reinvent him as kind of like a half forward. He's just a midfielder. He's a midfielder. I know he started he's a backman. He started off, but he's a pure midfielder, and I think they realised that. And essentially, him and Sarong started to split the load a bit, and Sarong wasn't playing a great amount of minutes inside in the mids and even on the ground. But, and Mundy just slowly that wheeled back and Sarong wheeled up, and it allowed Sarong to grow as a player as well. So, and, all the players love David Mundy. He's such a great bloke. He's got, 3 little kids as well, which I think keep him pretty young. He's he just continues to grow and continues to be a really, really solid footy player. And, to have someone like him in the team and around the squad, and he might be someone that, he might take a little bit of a backward step this year, but I mean, you can kind of allow that. And even if he does play, as a sub every now and again, or he's having a bit of time off and things like that. But yeah, he's looking really good. He had a little bit of a, someone rolled up on him, I think, in a marking contest, hurt his ankle a little bit. But in saying that, I feel like last year he broke his leg, fell off his kid's bike and broke his leg. So, pre-seasons don't matter for David Mundy. He's an absolute workhorse, and he's a really, really great bloke as well. That's probably the best thing about him. He's just a good human being overall. But I think, we're not expecting much from him this year, but whatever he delivers is a bonus. And that's the thing that you're looking from a guy like David Mundy. When they get to that age, it's just any games are a bonus, and as long as he's not a hindrance on the team, So, and we've got a young mids, but he's still better than a lot of the guys who are your next rotation of mids. He's still better than a lot of them. So you've just got to keep playing him, and he shows young guys like Erasmus and Johnson who've come in this year, how you have to train and be a professional, and how you've got to do everything right, and how to have a long and sustained career. And he probably learnt that from Pav, and, I don't know who Pav learnt that from before him, but Shane Parker or something like that. But,
Clive. You learned it from Clive?
Clive didn't have a long career, mate, unfortunately.
Yep, you got that from Clive. But you have a look at your Doige medal. Obviously, Darcy won it. We'll have a look at him in a moment. Andrew Brayshaw just continuing to grow. Caleb Sarong growing. You lose Chera, understandably. And I'll ask you the impact you think that's going to, if it's going to be a big one, or you might be, okay, we can cover for him. Luke Ryan just continues to be amazing down back. Nat Fyfe, he still ended up 7th, and I don't think he had the greatest year at all. Lachie Schultz, who we spoke about last year, cracked into the top 10. And then you've got Travis Collier. So it's a mix of old school and a bit of new school. And then Sam Switowski.
He's elite, according to the AFL, the champion data rankings. He's an elite small forward, Switkowski. So, yeah, I mean, I think, look, realistically, there's a couple. Did Collier finish in the top 10? I didn't think he did. Bloody hell. Look, I think if you're looking at those guys, there's a couple of young small forwards that, and older guys, Schultz, Switkowski and Collier. Look, workhorses, you could often say, look, we need to upgrade those guys, but they are solid footy players. Lukey Ryan, fantastic down back as always, real just no-nonsense, blue-collar kind of footy player, and probably someone who, I don't know, he probably got a little bit of praise 2 years ago when he was All-Australian. He was fantastic. Andy Brayshaw is the one who will be the breakout player for me, mate, as well. He's just, watching him on the weekend, now I know that the Eagles midfield wasn't great, but dead set, mate, he looked like he had so much time and space. In terms of Adam Chera, mate, really devastated for him to go, because he's the type of midfielder that you actually do need to put time into, and he's more of an outside than an inside. He's got those elite skills. He needs to build his body up to be able to, fit into an AFL program. So I think he's going to be really good at Carlton, and good luck to him there as well. But it was devastating to lose him. It was really, really, because hey, if you have him in the team, mate, all of a sudden our team is we are blowing the lid off this thing, because he's the guy who's delivering the ball inside 50 when Fyfe, Brayshaw, Sarong are extracting it, David Mundy extracting it, and he's getting it. And the way we played on Friday, it would have suited his style. But look, he wanted to go home. Should have known all along. I didn't realise his girlfriend had stayed in Melbourne. That's probably the biggest warning sign. As soon as that happened, we might as well have just packed him up. And, it's kind of weird, because you think, well, maybe we should have got games into blokes who we knew were going to stay, but you've always got to play your best 22.
You've got to play your best team.
And you've got to have selection
like him.
selection integrity and stuff like that. But, you've got to look to the future as well. And you just say he's got injury or something like that. Because I mean, in the end, he's always going to go, isn't he? When you hear that, you're just like, well, he's always going. It doesn't matter. Because what I mean, essentially, what we'd heard is that obviously Sarong, Cher, and Brayshaw were all really good mates, and their girlfriends were all really good mates as well. But I think the fact that they couldn't come back to Melbourne, it was a little bit hard. And Brayshaw's got family, like they're from WA, the Brayshaws, so he's got family over here. Sarong's really fit in really strongly, and I don't think he'll be going home. He's a country boy as well. So, country kids like myself, mate, we just go wherever we're needed. And, the Chera was that, Vic Metro, just had those strong family connections. And look, good luck to him. He's going to be really good at Carlton. I think people are going to see how good he is. He's a very good football player. And, hopefully Carlton still do terribly because they're our boogie team, and I don't like Carlton at all. But as
long as they're not having shots after the siren from the boundary, you're safe, mate.
Mate, literally, since we've been doing the pod, I reckon we've won like 2 games against them, and we play them twice a year. We play them every year, twice a year. Yeah, we lose against them after the siren. Played them twice this year. Should have beaten them both times. One was over in Melbourne as our home game. We lost that. We got absolutely pantsed in another one where it was just like they had the pressure on them. It was the pressure cooker, and they just came out and destroyed us. And we were like, oh, my Lord. And we were tracking all right. So, win those 2 games, and all of a sudden we're actually going to get into a final. But, little things like that happen, Peps. And, yeah, I just hope we beat Carlton this year, mate. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But I just really want to beat them.
It feels good when you get the bogey. We lost to St Kilda like 12 times in a row.
And it's weird sides as well.
Team. It's just – and it's usually not a great team either. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So this big fella that we had a quick little touch on a bit, Sean Darcy.
Yeah, the Hodor.
How big is this guy? And I know when I say big, like he's 200 centimetres and 113 kegs, and that's what the stats say at the moment. It's probably going to change. But when I say how big is this guy for Fremantle, is this guy the difference potentially with making the 8 and not making the 8, just his impact he can have at centre bounces and around the ground?
Yeah, big time, mate, big time. And his ability to go forward. Look, the thing with Sean Darcy is forget how young he is as well. Like, he's only a young fella. I think he's only about 23 or so. So, just forgetting how young he is and how long it usually takes ruckman to develop. He was, I reckon it was 2 years ago now, we played Port Adelaide, and he went up against Lyset, and they had another ruckman, Paddy Ryder, maybe even when he was still there. And as a first or second year player in the last quarter by himself, just dominated him. And you're kind of like, geez, this kid's got something. And, the one knock on Darcy is the fact that his pain threshold is a bit low. When he gets injured, it looks like he's out for the year. Like he looked like he'd done his knee against Western Bulldogs when we lost Cox, tore his hamstring off the bone, who is another underrated player who's back and about it. Fife did his shoulder, and it looked like Darcy had done his knee, but Darcy actually backed it up the next week. So sometimes you're just like, geez, this guy, we saw him in practice match 2 years ago. It looked like he broke his ankle. He went down and he was in a heap, and he's gone down to the chain, and then he's back, mate. He's a bigger redemption story than Lazarus, So he's a really, really imposing figure, however, around the ground. And we've got another guy, Lloyd Meek, who played on the weekend and played really well. He's our backup ruckman, and he's only a young fella as well. And they're both. Darcy going forward as well is pretty imposing. Like he's hard to match up on. He had games where he kicked 3 or 4 goals. Like he's a solid forward ruck or ruck forward. A guy that can drift down. The problem is that Lloyd Meek, as good as he's been in the waffle and playing as a ruckman, he's not a very good forward ruck. He's a good ruck forward, but if you know what I mean, yep. you got to be able to as a ruckman, and especially as the second ruckman. That's where probably Melbourne are so blessed, where you've got Luke Jackson, who's a good forward that can play in the ruck. Now we've got a man by the name of Rory Lobb, who
I was just about to ask you about this guy. Where does that leave you? Where does it leave Lobby? Because if you've got Meek and you've got Darcy Tucker. Where does it leave this?
Darcy,
Sean Darcy.
Darcy Tucker's another dude.
No, wrong one. I got that wrong. Sorry, I looked at the name and went as soon as I said it. But where does it leave Lobby? Because he left to go over to GW. He came back, and I think he wanted to try and go back to GWS, didn't he? And they wouldn't.
Yeah,
they didn't go back.
That's all right. Look, that's all forgiven and whatever. But Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if the team is to function correctly, he has to play as the forward who chops out in the ruck for 10 minutes a game. You know, like he's got to be that. And he is a really good ruckman. And he had a period where Darcy got injured 2 years ago and Lob rucked. Was the pure ruckman, and we didn't have any ruckman. Meek had hurt his foot. Scotty Jones, who was still at the club, was injured as well. And we just played, we played Lob in the ruck and Tabs backed up, you know, with the chop out. And he was really great. And I don't understand if you're good at footy and you're playing well, why wouldn't you want to play in that position? And being a ruckman, you're around the ground now. It's so important. So, but that's the Roaring Lobsters style. And I think you'll see an improvement in Lob because you'll see an improvement in our inside 50s. Yep. We always bomb it on Rory Lobb's head. He needs it 10 metres in front. He engages his opponent and then he leads out. So he pushes off and he leads. What we tend to do is when we see him pushing off is like, kick it on his head. And that's the Dockers. Our inside 50s have been terrible over the last couple of years, but I think J-Lo's focus has been our transition from back 50 into forward 50. And we saw that on the weekend where it's so funny when you talk to Dockers fans and they're like, hang on, we are leading out and taking marks. Like, what is this? Like, seriously, man. No, under Ross Lyon for 5 years, and then J-Lo, the Roshover was left from J-Lo. Like, I honestly can't remember a game where we would have maybe 5 lead out, hit the target, take the mark, go back and kick the goal. Yep. Like, and that seems like it's, you know, laces out. You'd say you want to lace out, mate. There we go. A little bit
I see what you did there.
That's just not in the Dockers makeup. It was bomb it in, repeat entries, ground balls, you know, any way you can get it. And, you know, to the point where I reckon about 3 years into the pod, I sat down and dissected 1/4 of inside 50s that we had. And one of them was a mark that went to a leading player. And Jesse Hogan took it about just on the 50 and he went back and kicked a point. And it was like, how are you supposed to function as a forward? And I think Rory Lobb, hopefully we see turn a corner in terms of his, because, and the other thing is, mate, if he starts having some bad games, the crowd will be on his back because he's not a fan favourite. I'll give you the red hot. And he wasn't a fan favourite before this stuff he did over the trade period. And he's not going to you know, it's one of those things, Peps, where I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I feel like if the AFL disclosed contracts like they do in the NBA and the NFL, I think Dockers fans would actually be like, yeah, get rid of this guy. Like, he's on too much money for what he's worth, what he's getting paid. Trade him for a second rounder. Who cares? Like, you know, like I think,
mate, when it comes to that sort of stuff, because I'm a massive advocate of it's no one else's business besides the club.
But Peps, you know, like most people, you can look up how much I get paid. I've got my award online. Like, you know, all you got to do is look up school teacher, Catholic education, Western Australia. You can have a guess at the range of money I make. Like, and it helps the fans be more engaged. Like, we had this situation where Reece Conker, right? So I don't know if this reached over to Melbourne, but Reece.
No, we didn't. Well, we love him. He's over at Melbourne at the moment.
So Reece Conker,
we're pretty happy with him.
So I went to the Doig Medal last year, and Reece Conker, after 6 rounds, was coming 8th in the Doig. Premium lockdown defender, playing really well, had a little bit of a slight hamstring strain, and then all of a sudden he just stopped playing. Now Reece Conker is a model citizen. He's a great person. He's a great footy person. You want to have him around your club, like Melbourne have snatched him up.
Yep.
But, mate, the thing is that he had a trigger in his contract that said if he plays one more game, he was on about $400,000-$500,000 a year. He's going to get $400,000 or $500,000 a year for the next year. He's not a $400,000 or $500,000 a year player. He's a back pocket who plays well. He's probably worth $200,000 to $300,000, maybe max. So if the fans know that, they're like, oh no, we support the Dockers in not picking him. Yeah, don't pick him. Definitely don't pick him. Or redo his contract so, you know, he doesn't have this trigger in it. But instead, it's like, oh no, it's got nothing to do with anything. It's nothing like.
I know,
and it's like, hang on, what the hell is going on here? Like,
that's all what supporters get frustrated with is,
and it becomes ducks and drakes, mate.
It's the constant mayo that's put onto stories, which we just don't know why.
Like what's the point? What is the?
Well, another example, like Lockie Schultz as an example, right? So this guy's on your rookie list, ends up in your top 10. Why isn't he getting a scene? Why is he still on the rookie list? Why can't he get a slot?
So that would be a list management thing. So I'm not sure. I think he actually potentially. Are you looking at the Footy Wires thing? or is that on the AFL
No,
website?
just
I'm not sure.
draftguru.com.au as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he is technically still. He might still be, but I know that Crowden and you know what it would have been is last year Lockie Schultz got delisted and then relisted, so that's where that comes from, that rookie listing.
So Crowden's still a rookie. Banfield is a
Crowden,
rookie.
Blakely, Banfield.
Yep, they're all still rookies. So this is updated at a fairly regular basis too.
Josh Tracy, and I think the rookie list isn't really a thing anymore, mate. You don't have to elevate or it's a load of crap, mate.
The way the clubs are now doing their rookie lists. Oh, as a guy who's 28, we don't want to cut him, but we'll put it. It shouldn't be
Bryce
that.
Bryce Gribbs, mate. Well, they just kept paying his contract, but had him as a rookie, because it fell outside of the.
It's not right.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about two of your older statesmen? One's a double Brownlow medalist in Fife, and the other one is in Michael Walters. How much longer do you see in these two guys floating around?
Well, Fife, he's spoken about if he gets another concussion, whether or not he'll keep playing. So that's, he's one head knock away from potentially retiring, Fifey, which is it might seem like a bit of a shock, but I mean, it's the truth, mate. He wants to look after those chickens, mate, look after his head, look after his melon. And mate, who knows with Fifey? The big devastating season news was Fifey shaved his goatee, mate. So, Peps, I'm not sure if you're on top of this, but Nathaniel Fife, who rolls some of the worst salad in the world, like his hairdo's terrible. He shaved his head, all right? Shaved his head. Fantastic. Love that. All right? Then he rolled the goatee, mate. And the goatee, Peps, mate, it's like gone of the wayside, mate. Like there's no goatees anymore. No one if you see someone rolling a goatee, you kind of give them a bit of a weird look. But he was bringing it back.
Beard.
Mate.
It's beard action. Look at us two hotties. We've got the beards going at the moment.
But like if you Peps, if I looked on the screen, mate, when we first met last year, and you had a goatee, I probably would have hung up straight away. All right, like that's the dead set truth.
I couldn't hang up because I needed someone from Fremantle to do a preview with me. But
if you saw me with a goatee, mate, you would have been like, "Oh no, bugger this, mate!" Like hang up, like close the computer,
turn the vision off,
throw the computer off. Yeah, but he's bringing back the goatee, and I know this is a lot of hyperbole, but look, the goatee was elite, and then he shaved it the other day, and it really devastated me because there was a lot of airplay about the goatee, and I'm really really upset about it. But look, Fifey. I really hope Fifey, we need to start to transition Fife into a bit of more of a forward that plays in the mids, bit more of a hybrid. Hopefully he can have an injury-free season. I know his shoulder was pretty dodgy, and he got that all cleaned up and then it got infected and he lost a bit of weight, but now he's looking ripped again. So, look, he's a real professional football player. Like he's in the 5-7 zone and he wants to be the best he can possibly be. And I think he also... Peps, I often talk about this without even knowing the guy, but I think about like he wants to be known as the greatest docker of all time. He wants to be known. And the only way he does that is wins the first flag. Like, he wants to be like like probably Melbourne people talk about Ron Barassi and Jim Steins and things like that. But he wants there to be like, if you think who's the greatest docker of all time, people always say Pav still. He wants it to be Fife. That's what he wants it to be.
Yeah, he wants to be Gorney-like, Oliver-like at the moment, like the credibility that those two are building over here. He wants to be in that realm, but he's got to get over Pavlich. That's the thing. Like,
but he wants him to build a statue of him, mate. It wouldn't surprise me, and that's good on him, mate. Like, because he's starting to, like a couple of years ago, he started to look at himself as not as like the best player at the Dockers. He wanted to be like LeBron James and Tom Brady. He wanted to be the greatest player of all time. So, and he's had injuries and things like that, and he's looking to see if he can play longer, but his longevity will be to do with whether or not we're successful or not. And we've been to the big dance once when he was a player, like since he started playing in 2013, and he had a pretty average day in front of goals that day. And, people still think about Fifey's. Yeah, I mean, and this
he got injured that day too in that grand final, didn't he? He got an ankle or a knee, something didn't go right, and then saw the wheels. But he had a couple of shots in that first quarter in that grand final that could have put them up, and
out of bounds on the full, missed by a mile, and missing by a mile. So just the start of the Docker, and he was kind of like last year. The fact that he got this monkey on his back with these points he was kicking, and just couldn't get over it, like couldn't get that mental demon of missing shots. Really killed him, and actually killed the side because it started to flow through. But Fife, look, expecting another good year from Fife. He's an elite player, and hopefully he spends a little bit more time down forward because he's pretty hard to match up on, and also the defenders just flock to him. they absolutely pack themselves when he's down there. Like, you go to the games and you watch Fife up forward. Like, if we probably play Melbourne at the G, who knows? Maybe probably playing mid Darwin or something like that. But, like, if you see Fife in the flesh, when he goes into the forward 50, it's panic stations for the defenders because they're like, holy crap, what's Fife going to do? And it frees up a little bit. On the flip side as well, Walters, if you're playing fantasy, I would not pick Walters. His stats are going to go right down. He's lost a lot of weight and he's looking good. He's had a little bit of an injury setback, but he's just going to play predominantly forward. His time in the midfield is kind of up. As other guys have come through, he might have bursts every now and again, but he'll be more of a forward mid rather than a mid forward like he was when he was an All-Australian. And it's a little bit of a tough one for Sonny, I think, because, he was dominating for large periods of time. He's kicking 5 and getting 30, like week in, week out, like he had a couple of really, really good games and he's really important down in the club, but he's stepped out of the leadership group. He's the loveliest guy. He came and spoke at our school the other day, actually. He's ripper dude, and he's got his story.
That's
mate,
all you, you know
amazing.
that. That's all you because you're just such a calming influence on these guys. They want to be around you. How could they not want to be around the Duck?
Yeah, well, it might help that Chris Main works for me now, mate. That might be another thing. But my mate Mainey, he's a good man. He's a good man, Mainey.
Mainey.
So got him on board. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, I have to ask you, what's got you – I know you've gone through so much, and if you could see – if you could see what you hear right now, listeners, you could see the smile across the Duck's face. What's really got you excited? Like, what's caught your eye so far about the difference between the way that they're playing outside of the fitness side of things to what you saw last year or even the year before that?
Mate, accurate goal kicking, transition from back 50, like D50 to forward 50, and in particular guys like Chapman, Young and Clark, mate. They're the guys that have really got me excited. Their skill, smarts, and speed, mate. The 3 S's I talked about yesterday on the pod, like those 3 guys, and throwing Brandon Walker, who's probably someone that people listening to the pod are like, who the hell are you talking about? Brandon Walker, who the hell's that? He's a really, really good footy player, and he came off our NGA list, and he's an excitement, and he doesn't lose his feet. He has good footy smarts, Like, I think we went through a period of about, I feel like it was 5 to 10 years where we just drafted like the dumbest blokes, and it was just like,
we've all
honestly, yeah, and you're just like, how dumb are these blokes at footy? They've got no footy brains, like no footy smarts. They seem to have no smarts whatsoever. But Chapman, Young, Clark, and Chuck in Walker, those guys, those young fellas, they look really exciting across the half back and wing, and their speed and their skills, and they just seem like really complete players that can intercept, can defend, can run off, and that it's really exciting, mate. Because I mean, traditionally Dockers since under Ross Lyon, we're a defend first team, so we always look at our back six. Back six get chicks, and we want to have the strongest back six that we can have. So
back six get chicks. I love that.
Mate. I tell you what, Peps. I don't know if you're coaching junior footy yet, but if you say that to I say that to my year 8s because the kids don't want to play in the back line, and the first thing you say is, well, back pocket's the first person picked. So the first magnet I put on the board's the back pocket. And like after a while, I just refer to the back six like you do in Ammo's footy as the back six. And you're like, back six, get chicks, boys. And they're like, yeah, I love it. And it's just like, and you're like, boys, you're a unit. There's no individuals here. It's all a unit. I was like, let the individuals play in the forward line. They can do whatever, and you just like.
The forwards kick goals, but the back line wins games.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. So out of all of that, who's going to be the breakout for you this year? You mentioned a lot of kids just there. Who's the one that's, got the twinkle in their eye, got the feathers on the Duck's back, just fluffed up a little bit to go, this guy.
The guy has to be a guy by the name of Monaro Frederic, whose twin brother plays for Port Adelaide. Freddie, we call him. Freddie feed it, mate. And they call him Big Rick down the club for Frederick. Big Rick. Michael Frederick, I think he's mainly called. We call him Feed It Freddie. Mate, his speed is so good. And he got a syndesmosis injury halfway or about round 6 or 7 last year. And he just looks like an absolute gun, mate. And his speed, and how important it is, Peps, to have quick players, and like speed kills in the AFL. And this guy is so quick. There was a footage last year, the behind the goal footage. I don't know if you remember. It was Hawthorn versus Dockers, and it was the guy CJ, the Sudanese guy from, and it was him versus Frederic, and Frederic, like literally, Freddie just like burns him, man, and gets it and kicks the goal. And it's from the halfback flank, and they just go at it. And he is dead set. His running patterns and his running ability, and he's looking yoked as well, mate. So he kicked 5 on the weekend in the practice match, 4 and the big thing is he kicked 3 in the first quarter when it was really the heat was on. He kicked 3. And he just looks like an all-round, real good player who, if he can kick 20 to 30 goals this year, which I know is a pretty big ask, we're going a long way into finals and things like that, because he's a real hard player to match up on.
Well, he's kicked 9 in 17. So, half a goal a game. Not a bad start. Build on that.
Yeah, if he can be one of those guys who kicks, 1 to 2 goals a game, then we're laughing, mate. Because if we kick any more than 10 goals, we're up and about. Like we are up and about.
If we don't kick under 10 goals, what's wrong?
Oh,
What's wrong? Now, unfortunately, someone is going to get the tap on the shoulder. JL's going to tap on the shoulder and say, "Look, mate, it's your last year. Who's going to be the breakdown?" And unfortunately, no one likes doing this, but it is a part of life. We've got to celebrate the bad with the good. Whose time is up, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Wilson. He's last year. We look at the Western Bulldogs game as kind of like the turning point in our season, where the season just left us. And obviously, like I said, Cox got injured, Fife got injured, and Darcy got injured, all within the space of a minute. But also, what happened in that minute is Wilson punched a dude in the dick and gave away a 50-metre penalty that resulted in a goal, and we only lost by a goal or two, and he just had an absolute meltdown. And look, he's been a solid player. He holds onto the ball for too long in the back line. I call it the old idiot pill, mate. He hangs onto it the stupider he gets, and then he just bombs it down the line. We've got, like I said, 4 or 5 half-back flankers, back pockets that will be better than him. And I think, his time's up at the club. And I said last night, him and Darcy Tucker, if they play more than 10 games this year, we're not going well. Darcy Tucker's the same as well, mate. Darcy Tucker, we started calling him Doctor Who because he'd literally play games and you'd be like, Darcy Tucker played like who? Like what? But seriously, and then his nickname during the year last year got changed to Dr. Y, as in like, why are you playing, mate? He was that bad. And there's this talk now, the Dockers like, oh yeah, Darcy Tucker's got a hamstring injury, but he'll be back. It's like, have people forgotten how bad he was at the end of last year? He was terrible. Like he was honestly costing us games. He was that bad. So look, Wilson, I think, will be the one who retires at the end of the year, and he was lucky to get another contract. Obviously, guys like, it'd be interesting to see how Walters goes. Just playing predominantly forward. Like I said, his stats will be right down, but he'll hopefully still be a good enough player. And David Mundy, if he goes on for another year after this one, mate, I'll be very surprised. But nothing.
Nothing against Mundy. Crikey, you'd leave him. He could play till 40. Just to have him around the club, my goodness. Wilson seems to have, because when he was at GWS, he was electric up there. It's almost like I was surprised this is his 5th year at Fremantle already. But it just doesn't look like he's had the same impact what he did when he was over.
He gives that run and carry, Wilson, and he's solid. He's a solid player, and he gives the run and carry. And look, under pressure a bit more, he'd probably want to be more of a attacking halfback than what he is. But look, he's had to play defensively. Look, he's played a number of games where, it's interesting. It seems like someone's given him an absolute rocket. So I remember against St Kilda a couple of years ago, he had a terrible first quarter, and J-Lo, I think, give it to him. And he came out and played an absolute blinder, and he played well for the next 3 or 4 games. So, he can play really good footy. It's past him now, and he's had toe injuries. He's had foot injuries, So, look, I'm off Nathan Wilson now. I'm like, get Chapman, Young, Clark, get guys like Brendan Walker, get guys like that in the team. That's who needs to be playing, the next generation, and let's start pumping these young fellas into the team, especially across the back line.
Well, if you have a look at last year, you finished off at 8-13, which, disappointing.
Yeah, we lost. Yeah, lost game to Carlton we shouldn't have lost a game to Essendon we shouldn't have lost, both in Melbourne. So it was pretty disappointing in the end when you're looking back at those games. But look, we finished really poorly against St Kilda that last game down in Tassie. It was actually embarrassing in the end, but I think it was the end of the season and we got a lot of young guys and we'd been, in and out and all over the place and, in quarantine and stuff like that. So fair dukes to those guys and, they were on a hiding to nothing, but it's it was a disappointing way to end, but I thought overall it was a pretty good season. We probably, if we kicked accurately, we probably would have won more games than we lost, and all of a sudden we're in the finals and we're actually there and thereabouts. But unfortunately, that's the way footy goes. Is the most underrated stat is accurate goal kicking, and we were I think we were 18th, and like that was honestly, I don't know if champion data included the ones that went out of bounds on the full, didn't make the distance. Like Lockie Schultz is so funny. We're talking about Lockie Schultz. We're like, Lockie Schultz's contract should have been like, the old, like the
performance-based contracts?
Yeah, but like the hammer throw or the javelin and have these lines and be like,
oh, yeah, you have it.
You kick it 20 metres, mate, you get 1 year, 30 metres, 2 years, 40. The bloke can't kick 30 metres, mate. Like, honestly, I've seen him not make the distance from 35 metres out a number of times at during games, and you're just like, holy Mary, like
I saw Adam Chera miss from 25 metres straight out in front against the D's last year. I've never seen a ball go right angles off his shin. So if it's worse than that,
this is
good luck to the young fella.
The practice match, we can talk about a guy who was completely dockery, and that's Will Brodie, who's one of our new recruits, who sidestepped. I don't know if you watched the game, mate. He sidestepped an Eagles player, and he's 20 metres out on a 45-degree angle on the right-hand side, and he literally kicked it. So he's running into an open goal just about, and he's kicked it about 10 metres out of bounds on the full on the left-hand side. So it's just come straight off the side of the boot, no pressure, practice match, and you're just like, welcome in, mate. You are.
So it was almost Ben Simmons-like.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Rightio. So headline for the year, we open up the Western Australian. I turn to the back page, summarising the 2022 season for the Fremantle Dockers. What is going to be the headline that we're all going to be reading?
I reckon it's going to be Dockers win a home final. So we're going to finish, I reckon, 5th or 6th and win that final. So I reckon that's what it is. Dockers win home final.
Well, you weren't that far off last year. Like I said, you did finish on 10 and 12, but with percentage, you're probably another 2 games out.
And the fact is, it's like
percentage of GWS.
Mate, we play like Hawthorn and GWS at the start of the year. We kicked like 12 goals, 18 or 25 against both those. And we should have won by like 15 goals. Like both teams should have been like percentage boosters. And we just could not kick it straight, mate. And like, when you're kicking 3 goals, 8 in a quarter, and you're just like, oh my Lord, like so many repeat entries, but for no goals. And just keeping everyone entertained, mate. Give everyone a sniff. We're a real fair club down at Freo. So always give everyone
there's
a
a lot
sniff,
of love
mate.
coming out of Fremantle, isn't there?
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's talk about some love. We did it last year and we're going to do it again. We're going to put your agates on the chopping block, my friend. This is where it separates the men from the boys. Who is going to be the 2022 Premier? And it can be multiple teams if you've got ones in mind.
Nah, I reckon it's going to be the Western Bulldogs. I think they bounced back from last year. I think everything that could have gone right for Melbourne did go right, mate. I think they will be. I wouldn't surprise me if it's a repeat of the grand final, but the Bulldogs get over the top. Just a little bit more maturity with the Bulldogs. I think their midfield's so good. Like, it's really hard to match, and all it takes is, I don't know what your depth is like at Melbourne in the midfield, but a couple of injuries, a couple of blokes go down, and all of a sudden, it's like any team. And whoever wins it's going to need their injury luck.
Yeah.
That's going to be the big thing. And who knows what's going to happen for this year? Like, games could be closed, shut down. Like, you could go for a run where your team has like just rife with COVID, and the old Casey Scorpions or Peel Thunder are pretty much playing for the Dockers or Melbourne. Like, it's really interesting, and I think that's a little known. That's something that West Australians are talking about, but I don't know if you guys are talking about it in the eastern states. The fact that there are different close contact rules in different states.
Yeah,
so
obviously, it's like everybody's had it here.
Yeah.
So we're not that super fussed with it, but over there in Perth, you locked down the entire state for so long, and now it's blown open anyway. So why did you waste your time? You could have just been like the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, we're waiting for our hospital system to do nothing anyway, mate. We spent 2 years doing that, but that's another argument for another.
It's another day. Another argument for another day.
Western Bulldogs, mate, and I'm going to give you their price. They're paying $6.50 on Sportsbet, mate. So I'm not allowed to gamble on footy because of our media accreditation. So I will just say that Western Bulldogs are paying $6.50, and I don't mind that. That's a little bit tasty.
It's tasty. Well, you know what's also tasty is the Coleman medalist. Who's caught your eye to kick the most goals for 2022?
Now, mate, last year I reckon I said these two blokes, but I reckon I know what Ben King's dead. He's hurt his knee, but Maxi King at St Kilda, mate. I love the King brothers. If they can straighten up their kicking, they look $1 million.
Well, Maxi got his right. Maxi finally worked it out. He was shanking left, right. He was shanking like me.
Yeah,
on the golf course on the weekend.
Max King at $13, mate, is a little bit of a treat, I reckon. And I reckon St Kilda might improve a little bit. I don't know. I reckon if you just kick it to Max King. Just kick it to Max King, mate. Like, you know.
They're the new Geelong, my eyes. They're going to be the new Geelong. They're going to have a dad's army, and they're cooked. Brownlow medalist. Who have you caught your eye for the Brownlow? And the Brownlow's an interesting one too, because we've had people saying that the MVP or the Coaches Award is more important because the Brownlow now is literally a midfielder's award.
Yeah, it's well, no, I'm 100% agree with that. I think coaches awards probably the number one because they're watching and they're looking. Now, some of the coaches might not care and just be like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I remember one year Daniel Pearce got 2 votes for the Dockers and he literally kicked the ball and it hit him in the head. Like he kicked the ball and it hit like Will Petrosky style with the volleyball, mate. But like he kicked the ball and it hit him in the head and then he span around. And I actually rang up 6BR, which is like our, Triple M or whatever you want to call it over here. And I was like, mate, please tell me which of these coaches gave Daniel Pearce 2 votes? Because I watched that game and he was the worst on ground. Like these are the things that he did. And I just went through. He did like 5 or 6 things that were terrible. I think he was one of Ross Lyon's favourite. But, mate, I'm going local. Andy Brayshaw, $51.
Ooh.
Get on Brayshaw. He is like his brother Angus, who came second a couple of years ago. He got 10 votes last year. He was one of the best midfielders at the start of the year, ran out of puff towards the end. But, mate, he looks like he's taking his game to another level. I don't think Fife will get as many votes. I think that the sheen on Fife.
Someone has to get him if you're winning.
Sonny Walters won't get as many votes, and he's only really got Caleb Sarong to take votes off him. So I reckon Andy Brayshaw through the guts. He's a very plain looking dude. That's the only thing. Like he's a good looking rooster, but he just he kind of just molds into everything. But Andy Brayshaw at $51, I reckon is an absolute treat. And Peps, if you multi that, mate, and this is me, this is how bad I am because I'm not allowed to bet. If you multi that, mate, it's paying $4,309.50.
I tell you what, if that comes in at the end of the year, this is going to be the greatest podcast episode.
Well,
ever.
Mate, I can't bet on it.
We couldn't pick a broken nose last year, J-Dog and I. That could be, if that comes in. So Western Bulldogs into Max King, into Andrew Brayshaw.
Tell you what, now,
dinner's on.
The thing as well, mate. If you've got people out, do you have people who listen out that are punters out here?
We have a few. Yeah, we have a few.
Now, punters, you need to understand. And you had what was his name? Wazza on the weekend.
Yeah, Wazza. Yep.
Mate, the line for the Dockers against the Eagles is now, it's gone up to 26.5 points. It was at 24.5 points, mate. We just beat the Eagles. We beat the Eagles by 97 points. We're getting better and they're going to be worse. Like they've only got like 24 blokes that can play on the weekend. Like, and they're not any of their good. There's no guys that are coming out of the thing that are going to play, but we're going to have Fife, Walters, Mundy. We're going to have all these players back to have a run. Yeah, mate. But seriously, like that is a license to steal, mate. And if any of the listeners want to take one bit of gambling advice, it's unload your bank account, put it on Dockers minus 26.5, and when you double your money, send a little bit our way via our patronage, mate. Easy peasy. That is like, mate, you know when you get these times where you're like, is there just someone in Victoria just doing these lines? Like, what is happening? Like, this is it's an unbelievable line. And last night, because me and Oz can't bet, right? So last night, me and Oz are just like, get on this line. You need to do it. Like, and
how are you going to feel if that does not come in? More importantly, not about the line not coming in, the fact that you've been beaten by a team with only 24 fit players on their list.
Oh, mate, we'll flog them. They were so trash. They are absolute trash now, mate. They've got so many bad players. Their midfield is crap. their back line gets exposed because of it, and then their forward line's no good anymore. Like, they got so many injuries, and they're so bad. And their reserve players, just their bottom.
This has got to hurt you, really hurt you having to talk about the old toasters like this. Old Meth Coast, hey?
Breaks my heart, mate, breaks my heart. The guys who just they are a super professional club, and their fans won't stand for it. Honestly, I reckon, like, we talked headlines, but Simpson getting sacked wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know. So it's kind of interesting, Duck. I'll tell you what, it's going to be an interesting. I reckon I'm putting you either 8th or 9th. I've still got to work it out who I'm going to swap them around with. But you're right. If all these, you only need a few of those young players who are okay to become semi-good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that can be that extra 1 or 2 wins. That gets you a spot in the final 8, gets you a spot for the dance. And once you're there, anything can happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, I told you, ladies and gentlemen, children around the world, people listening internationally, this is by far the best preseason preview. I couldn't even get the word out. Preview that you're going to get for the Fremantle Dockers. Duck is an absolute gem. Now, what have you got planned for the Purple Rain for all the supporters? It was a big year last year for you.
Yeah. So we are doing, obviously, our preview show on the Purple Rain. We'll do that. I meant our review show, not preview show. Review show every Monday afternoon that where me and Oz recorded at Oz's house. It's a little bit hard with the close contact. We actually recorded with Mars on last night, mate, just so we weren't deemed close contacts, which kind of sucks because we are both school teachers and we deal with kids every day. And
so my wife.
You don't know. Yeah, it's a nightmare. But yeah, we're doing that. We'll also, I think I'm 90% sure we're still doing the final siren, which is with the Dockers in the change rooms after the game. Don't know if we'll be in the change rooms, not sure, but we'll be doing a quick 20-minute breakdown after the game with a guest. Often that will be a player comes on the show, and that's also videoed, so you get to see my lovely face if you want to get around that. And that's
not roaming Brian. It's known as the fluffy duck. Is that what it's referred to in the?
Well, mate, it is. Like, I tell you what, Peps. Like, honestly, doing that has caused my enjoyment of watching footy. It's gone down a little bit because it's like we won every game when we were in the change rooms, which was unbelievable. Yeah. It was like at the biggest run. And the 2 games we lost at home, I think we weren't allowed in the change rooms because of COVID or something like that.
Yep.
So, like, we were just so blessed. But, like, when you're running down, because they jam the elevators for the coaches only, but when you're running down flights of stairs and the Dockers have won by, like, 5 points and you're excited, but also you're so relieved because you're not talking about the Dockers losing and, we blew it again and this and that. So, look, we're really pumped. And the Fremantle media team, mate, like in Dockers land and Docker Twitter, people always big up the Fremantle media team, but they are elite. And, like, they've had to, like, when your team hasn't been great since 2015, you've got to have a great media team. And they've been really funny and really good. And they're a good bunch of people, and they're support of us and being like, hey, we want to hear a fan's voice. And me and Oz are lucky that we're the fans that get that voice. It's been really good. So hopefully that will continue. Sorry, not hopefully, that will continue. So we'll be doing that after every home game. And then we might try and do a few preview shows. We're just experimenting with that a bit. That's just something we're thinking about, but it's a bit hard with both me and Oz, our jobs, and you know how life gets, mate. It's just hard. Things become hard, and you start to get on with other stuff in your life. And when everything becomes the Dockers, you're just kind of like, if they're going well, mate. Well, hopefully if they go well.
Oh, you're walking on water when everything's well, but geez, you're drowning when it ain't going well. Yeah, and we've been in that situation, and you're been in that situation as well too. So I feel your pain, mate. You have been an absolute superstar. You know that I think the world of you. But there's only there's one more thing and one last question I have to ask you, and it's simple. To the megastar Duck from the Purple Rain podcast, how do you want your footy?
Lace out, thanks, mate. Right just on the tip,
lace
mate.
Out. Just
lace
right
out.
On the, right
just
on the
here.
Chest.
Right
just
there.
right here.
Thanks,
right
mate.
here.
Right there.
There you go, listeners. Can't ask for much more than that. Duck, you're a superstar. Have a great year. I think you're going to be.
Yeah, I reckon we might be as well, Peps. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it, Ace out.